Hello friends, welcome once again to Rick's Garage. What you see here is a 2011 Chrysler 200. It's got the 2.4 liter 4-cylinder motor. It's one of my own cars. You may have seen it on many of my videos. What we're going to be doing today is replacing the master cylinder. For one thing, the brake light keeps coming on from time to time. Generally, when you're riding the brake down a hill or coming to a long stop, like you're pulling into a driveway, the brake light will pop on. If I'm at a stop sign or a red light or a drive-through, sometimes the pedal will start to sink. I'm not getting any ABS codes, so I believe it's just the master cylinder. The car's approaching 100,000 miles, so it's probably due. Now, if you've ever watched my channel, you know I don't like to duplicate videos that are well done on YouTube. In this particular instance, I just did a search and I couldn't find anything on how to replace the master cylinder on this particular model. Now, one thing you should keep in mind, where we are indeed replacing the master cylinder, we're going to have to bleed all four wheels. Now, I do not know if I'm going to have problems loosening the bleeder nuts or not. If it involves replacing a caliper or two, so be it. We have to replace this master cylinder, and we do indeed have to bleed the brakes, so we'll do whatever we have to do. Just bear that in mind. For this job, I'm going to be using my Eastwood underhood light. I'm going to turn it on now. It really does a nice job lighting up the engine compartment. Okay friends, the first thing we're going to do is disconnect this negative battery terminal. On this particular vehicle, the battery is actually inside the fender here. It's got these terminals outside that you can use if you need to jump the car. So we're going to disconnect the negative battery terminal. Okay. I'm going to tuck this out of the way somewhere. I'll put it right in here. Okay, that's out of the way. I'm going to put this back on so it don't get lost. And now, this little junction box for the positive terminal is kind of in the way. So we're going to go ahead and get that out of here. There's a little tab right here. Press in this tab and the thing will lift right off. And then we're going to take the terminal itself and get that out of the way. Clip this little tab right in here, and this should lift right out of there. We'll tuck that in out of the way somewhere. Now the next thing I'm going to do is pump the brakes with the motor off, and that is to release any residual vacuum that remains in the booster. So I'm doing that right now. You can tell when all the vacuum is gone because the pedal becomes very hard to press. Alright, that ought to about do it. What I'm going to attempt to do next is to remove the brake tubing right here. Now I'm going to leave the cap on. I've got a little absorbent pad underneath the car to catch any fluid that we lose, and by leaving the cap on, the fluid we lose will be minimal. Similar to like if you're pouring gas out of a gas can, at least the old type. You'd have to loosen the vent to get the gas to come out faster. The other thing I'm going to do, I've got these little blue plugs. I don't know if you can see it. There you go. I'm going to, these actually came with the new master cylinder. I'm going to plug these holes as soon as I get the brake tubing off. Now this happens to be a 12 millimeter, and I've got a nice swivel 12 millimeter tubing wrench here, and let's see if we can get this to loosen up. There it goes. Alright, so now that I got it started with a tubing wrench, I can use a regular wrench to get it off. Be a little faster with a regular open-end wrench. But you don't want to try to use an open-end wrench to remove it, because you might strip it. Let's see if I can move this with my... Yeah, I can unscrew it with my fingers now. I'm blocking your vision, I apologize for that. Now we are going to lose a little bit of fluid when I pull this out. And the fluid's starting to come. Not a lot. That's because we left the cap on. And I'm going to put this plug in. And I'm just going to tighten the plug very lightly. So I don't want to strip it. So, we lost very little fluid. Okay, friends, in the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and remove the other brake line off camera. The procedure is exactly the same for both. Next, we're going to be unplugging the sensor. That's this device right here. Now, I'm going to be blocking your view, but there's a little tab right there you want to press in, and you can pull it right off. So I'm going to do that right now. Oh, there, it came off quite easily. All right. So that's off. Okay, next we're going to try to remove these bolts. I'm going to spray a little Chrysler on them. There we go. And I'm going to try to spray some Chrysler on the other one, which you're not going to be able to see. Alright, I apologize for this. I'm going to try to hand hold this camera for a minute. I'm going to try to undo the master cylinder bolt that's under here. And I think the only way I can give you a look at it is to try to hand hold the camera. I don't think you're going to be able to see me undoing it. So let's see if I can get you a peek at it. Yeah, there it is right there. And I'm sorry I got a shaky hand. Let me steady that a little bit. Yeah, there's a view of it right there. And that's the best look I'm going to be able to give you at it. I'm going to use a long extension with a swivel socket. It's 13 millimeter. So I'll pull the camera out and we'll try it. Alright, so to give you an idea what I'm going to use, I've got this long extension. It's a swivel socket, 13 millimeter, and I've got it on a real long extension. The extension is 20 inches long, and you're not going to be able to see me get in there, but I'm going to try to get on that nut. Almost got a straight shot at it. All right, I'm on it, and I'm going to try to turn it. Oh, it's turning quite easily. All right, it's going to be fun trying to put it back on, I'll tell you. I just don't want to lose it. It's like it's coming right off quite easily now. And there it is. It's still in my socket, so I did not lose it. So that went pretty well. Okay, I can give you a better view of the other side. I'm going to use the same exact tool. You notice I removed the more difficult one to get at first. If I had loosened this one first, then the thing might have drooped and it might have complicated trying to take the other one off. So it's a general school of thought that when you're got several bolts to undo, you always do the most difficult one, or the one that appears to be the most difficult. So let's get on there and see if we can turn this one. These swivel sockets are great. If you don't have a set, I would invest in a set. don't know how you could do this job without it. Although it appears to be almost a straight-in shot, so probably could do with a regular one. So I'm going to reach in with my hand and get that off the rest of the way. Alright, so we're ready to try to pull this out. Now there's a little fastener right here that looks like it might be in the way, so I'm gonna try to pull this up. There we go. It goes to a little strip that goes beneath the crowl. I just want it out of the way. I don't know how hard this is going to come out, and I don't know how much I'm going to have to manipulate it because you got a bunch of wire harnesses in the way. I'm hopeful that I don't have to disconnect any of those. Now sometimes these are still under a little suction. You'll remember that we pressed the brake pedal a few times to try to release any residual vacuum that was in the booster. So let's see if it feels loose at all. Oh, it just comes out quite easily. Sometimes you have to kind of exert a little force to get the vacuum to release. So looks like we don't have to do that. So let's see to what extent this will come out. Looks like we have to twist it around a little bit here and there. The wire harness is a little bit in the way, but looks like it's not going to be too difficult. Although we seem to have it stuck right now. There we go. All right, we got it out. Good. Success. So now that we've got the old master cylinder out, I want to show you the rod. That's the rod right there. And it's adjustable. Now some master cylinders come with a gauge that tells you how to adjust it. This did not. So I'm going to assume that it's in the correct position, considering we're putting in an identical master cylinder, so I'm not going to fiddle with it. So at this point, friends, we're ready to go ahead and attempt to bench bleed the new master cylinder. So as you can see here, friends, I've gone ahead and clamped the master cylinder into my bench vise. You'll need some sort of vise to hold the master cylinder so you can bench bleed it. And I've gone ahead and installed my two fittings. These are 11mm fittings. The most common sizes are 10mm, 11mm, and 12mm. These happen to be the 11mm size. Now the first thing you'll need to do is go down to your local parts store and buy a bench bleeding kit. They go anywhere from $6 to $10. And what you'll get a number of fittings, and you'll get some tubing and some clips to hold the tubing in place. Well, one of the problems you'll run into is the kit you buy will likely only have one fitting of each size. So you'll have to go back up and buy a second kit. So when you are at the parts counter and they hand you your kit, check it out to make sure there's two of each size. If there's only one of each size, then you'll have to buy two kits, obviously. I don't know why they do that. I'd rather see them charge a little bit more money for the kit and make sure you have at least two of each size. The other thing you'll find is quite often they give you these black tubings. Well, it's kind of useless because you really need to see the bubbles, the air bubbles coming out, and you need to see when it's clear. And a black tubing just doesn't cut it. So what you can do is run down to your local hardware store on your way home from the parts store and get yourself some clear plastic tubing. This is 3/16 tubing right here. That'll allow you to see the bubbles at least. So as I said, I've already gone ahead and installed the fittings in the interest of saving time. You don't need to see me screwing those in. And I've got these two little caps that came with the kit. We're going to use those to block those off after we finish bleeding it. And as I showed you, we've got these little clips. So what we're going to do now is we're going to clip the tube in, and we're going to clip the tube in the other one. And the whole purpose of this is to hold these tubes in place so they don't slip out of the master cylinder when you're trying to bench bleed it. We're going to remove the cover. we're going to install the tubing over to our fitting, and we're going to clip it into the master cylinder like so. I hope I'm not blocking your vision. And then we're going to take the other tubing and slip it over our other fitting. Make sure these fittings are fairly tight. You don't want to put them too tight because they're only made out of plastic, but you need them to seal. And then we're going to take the other tube, we're going to clip this into the master cylinder. And we want these deep enough so that the ends of the tubes will be submerged. So now we're going to put in our brake fluid, and we want to put enough brake fluid in so that the tubings are submerged. Now I'm going to use a little funnel to do this. I put in the tubings first because I don't want to leak fluid in, and pour it in fairly slowly. You can see fluid's already coming into our tubing. Sometimes if you pour it in too fast, it'll overflow, up like it's doing right now. Okay. So that looks like about all we're going to get in there. We've overfilled it a little bit, but that's okay. We're only bench bleeding it. When we get it on the car, we'll have the correct amount in there. Now to push the actuator back and forth, I'm going to use a 1/4-inch drive extension with the nut driver. I want something fairly blunt on the end to press the actuator in and out. You can use probably almost anything, probably a dull screwdriver. So we're going to start carefully pushing this actuator in and out. And we already see bubbles coming. So we're going to keep pressing it until all the bubbles disappear. Looks like they're almost gone already. This one's pretty clear. We're still getting a few bubbles on the first one. Now the first one's clearing up nicely. Seeing almost nothing now. Okay, I would say we're done. Now we're going to have a little bit of fluid escape when we undo the hoses, and we're going to have these little caps that we're going to put on them to prevent the fluid from getting lost. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull these clips off, and I'm going to hold these tubes up, and I'm going to put the cover back on. Now the reason I'm putting the cover back on, with air not going in here, it will help reduce the amount of fluid we're going to lose. Now we'll still lose a little bit of fluid, but it won't be as great because we've stopped the airflow. So I'm going to pull this one off first. We're going to see a little fluid come out, but we're going to try to put that cap on fairly quickly. See, the fluid very minimal that came out. And now we're going to do the other one and put just a few drops came out. So there. And I'm going to try to wipe up some of this fluid that came out. I've got an absorbent pad on the floor that will grab any that dripped onto the floor. Now one thing I should talk to you about that I haven't as of yet is you see we're spilling fluid a little bit here and there. Brake fluid will damage the finish of your car. If it's left on there, it'll eat the paint. So once you're ready to install this, make sure your hands are clean If you do happen to spill a little fluid on the fender, wipe it up right away. It won't hurt anything, but if you leave it there over time, it will damage the finish of the car. So just keep that in mind. Okay friends, I'm ready to install the new master cylinder. As I recall, this wire harness was a little bit in the way, so we're going to try to snake it by that. If I didn't mention before, this is a brand new master cylinder. I got it from Napa Auto Parts, so there was no trade-in necessary. Cost a little more than $150. Now what I'm going to do here before I install it, I'm going to spray a little bit of, just a little bit of soapy water on the seal. I don't want to use any petroleum-based lubricants because I'm afraid over time it might eat into the seal. So I think for this purpose, a little bit of soapy water will do the trick. So let's see how easily we can get this to go in there. So far it's pretty good. Let me get a better look at it. I hope I'm not blocking your view too bad. Now I gotta get this part underneath this piece of wiring harness, and that went pretty easily. So now let's see if we can get it onto the studs. Yeah, it went right on. And it looks like it slipped in quite easily. I think that soapy water helped out quite a bit. So we're going to try to get the nuts on now. I don't know how well you can see this, but what I've done here is I've put a little piece of electrical tape in the socket so it'll hold the nut on there. I'm worried that the nut might fall off while I'm trying to get it in place. And also I put a little piece of electrical tape on the end of the extension. Last time I tried this little trick, what happened is the socket stayed with the nut. So I want to make sure the socket comes back after I get the nut secured. So that's the whole reason for this electrical tape. It's a neat little trick. I've done it several times. You may have seen me doing it last when I was replacing the crankshaft sensor on a Nissan. When I remove this, I recommend using a swivel socket. As I look at it, I think I've got a pretty straight shot at it, so I've switched over to a regular standard socket. I'm going to try that and see how it works. I'm still using the 20-inch ratchet. Alright, looks like I'm on it. Let's see if I can get it on there without cross-threading it. Yep, tightening up. I'm not going to tighten it all the way. And as expected, the socket came back, but the tape stayed with the nut. I don't really care if it did or not. Remember I spoke to you a little while ago about be careful not to get brake fluid on the finish of your car. Well, in the process of installing this master cylinder, there was a little bit of residue of brake fluid on it, and I happened to get it on my fingers, and I leaned against the car right here, so I've got some fingerprints on the fender that probably are contaminated with brake fluid. So I'm going to clean this off right away. Like I told you before, if this happens to you, be wary of that, and if you do think you might get something on the car, clean it off right away, and that's what I'm doing right now. The brake fluid won't immediately damage the finish, but over time it will if you leave it on there. Okay, I have repositioned the camera, and I'm going to pull this transmission dipstick out of the way and give me a little better chance to get a straight-on shot at this thing. As you recall, I recommended using a swivel. I don't think that's necessary now. So I'm going to start this with my fingers. I hope I don't block your view too badly. Oh, by the way, don't forget to put that dipstick back when you're done. Okay, so we put that on, and we're going to give that a little tighten. Yeah, so it wasn't necessary to use the swivel at all. I thought it was, but looks like you got a pretty straight-on shot for this thing. So we're just going to finish tighten. I don't know how tight you're supposed to put these. I just put them till they won't turn anymore. I'm trying to give you a little decent view of this. I'm going to try to replace the brake tubings. I'm going to remove the fitting that we use to bleed the master cylinder, and hopefully we won't lose too much fluid because we've got the cap on the master cylinder and there's almost nothing coming out, which is good. We're going to try to get this thing restarted, get the proper angle. Be careful not to cross thread this thing. Sometimes when you bend these things out of the way, they tend to cross thread. Be a little stubborn trying to get it started. So it's best to get it started with your fingers, then you know you're not going to cross thread it. Alright, I'm going to get something to try to turn that with. Okay, I got the tubing nut started, but I had to reposition the camera because I didn't have enough room to get a wrench in there. It's going to be a long process tightening this because I can only move it a quarter of a turn at a time. So I'm going to finish this one up off camera, and I'll do the other one off camera as well in the interest of saving time. So I'll come back when I've got both these on. I got those two flare nuts back on with the tubing. I spared you the boredom of watching that. I could only turn them about a quarter of a turn at a time because of the limited access. So it took me quite a while to get them back on and tight. So that's done. Now I'm going to plug in that little sensor. It's the wire right here. There we go. Yeah, clicked right in. All right, I'm sorry you didn't see that too well. My hand was in the way, but I clicked the sensor back in. So I'm going to go ahead and put this dipstick back in before I forget it. And I'm going to clip the positive terminal back on its holder. It's locked in, and I'm going to put this little cover back on it. That's clicked in. So I'm not going to put the negative terminal back on as of yet. I'm going to wait till I'm completely done. So with the exception of the negative battery terminal, we're done up here. Next, we're going to have to try to bleed the brakes. So off camera, I'm going to go ahead and remove all four wheels, and I'm going to put a little bit of Chrysler on each one of those bleeder nuts, and I'm going to let it sit overnight. I need every advantage I can to try to get them off. So we will see you tomorrow, hopefully with all the wheels off, and we'll try to bleed the brakes. Alright friends, when I left you yesterday, I said I was going to remove all four wheels off camera and soak these bleeder nuts in my favorite penetrating oil, Chrysler. So I have done that, and off camera I have successfully loosened all the bleeder nuts except for this one. I wanted to save this one to show you my new tool that I use to loosen these with. It's the laser glow plug removal tool. It uses vibro shock to get these things out, and it works quite well. It has 4 settings. We're going to use it on the lowest setting to start with, and it uses vibro shock to loosen these things. We're going to put it on. Oh my God, it spun it out that quickly. Well, I didn't expect that to happen. Usually it has to wail on them for a while. I have not previously loosened this. I don't know what to say. I didn't expect it to come off that quickly and easily. The others did not. So anyway, this is the tool, and I will leave a link to it. I did a previous video on showing how to use it, and it does work quite well. As you saw, I don't think this bleeder nut was frozen at all. It came off so easily. We're going to prepare now to actually bleed the brakes, and I'll come back when we're ready to do that. Well, friends, we're ready to go ahead and bleed these brakes. Normally I would use my motive power bleeder, but I realize that not many of you have access to a power bleeder, so I'm going to show you the conventional way of bleeding the brakes with a helper. First of all, we're going to start on this wheel, which is the farthest wheel away from the master cylinder, the passenger side rear. Then we'll move over to the driver's side rear, then to the passenger side front, and then to the driver's side front. That's the order in which you would do these. I have a good sized pan underneath the caliper to catch the fluid. Now, if you're worried about fluid spraying out all over the place, you can put a little hose on there. I don't think that's necessary. When you first open the bleeder nut under pressure, open it just a little bit to get an idea how much it's going to squirt out. Now, the way we're going to do this, while I'm waiting for my helper to come down, I'll explain to you. What you do is you tell your helper to pump up the brakes, and he will pump the pedal until you say hold it. And once you say hold it, he will hold the pedal down to the floor, and while he's doing that, you open the bleeder nut. Now, once the pedal reaches the floor, you close the bleeder nut, and then you say pump it up again, and he'll pump it up again. You'll say hold it, he'll hold it down to the floor, and while he's holding it down to the floor, you open the bleeder nut. Once the pedal reaches the floor, you close it, and then you tell him pump it up again. And you do this until you get all the air out of the system. It's quite simple. Now, in the interest of time, I'm only going to show this one wheel. The procedure is exactly the same for all four wheels. The video has become quite lengthy, and I apologize for that. The reason for that is the last time I did a master cylinder, it was a Toyota vehicle, and I had complaints that I had cut too much out of the video to save time, that I cut out too many things. So this one here, I tried to cut out as little as possible and show you the entire procedure. All right, go ahead, pump it up. Hold it down. Oh yeah, it's coming out. All right, looks like we don't need the hose here. Pump it up. Hold it down. Pump it up. Hold it down. I'm not seeing any air at all. I'll do it a couple more times. Pump it up. All right, hold it down. It's nice clean fluid coming out of there. All right, pump it up. Hold it down. All right, we're getting nothing out of there. This one's done. Okay, I'm going to top off the master cylinder, and we'll go to the next wheel. The next wheel we're going to do is the other rear wheel. So I'm going to do the rest of these wheels off camera. I just wanted to show you the procedure. So we'll finish this up off camera, and then I'll come back. Okay, friends, off camera, my helper and I finished bleeding all four wheels. Make sure you top off your master cylinder to the correct fluid level. Off camera, I'm going to go ahead and put the wheels back on. I don't need to show you that. I think you all know how to install wheels. So at this point, I'm going to call this job done. I want to thank you for watching Rick's Garage. Again, I apologize for the length of this video, but I wanted to show you as much of this job as I possibly could. Now, at the end of this video, I'm going to post two links to your left. One will be how to use the motive power bleeder. The other one will be some video that I hope you find of interest. Feel free to click on either one. To your right will be my avatar in the form of my trusty German Shepherd. Feel free to click on that if you wish to subscribe. So thanks once again for watching, and I hope that we will see you again sometime.